you're going to go to a website called repl.it. So this website is an online IDE. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. It allows you to code and then run that code to see the outputs. Now, in our case, we're just going to be using HTML, but you can use other programming languages in this as well. When you sign up, make sure you click the Google button and sign up using your Google account, your school Google account. That'll keep it nice and simple. No need to type in any username or password. Just use your Google account, the Google button. Okay, so when you sign up, you'll get to a page that has a quick start guide and start coding now. You're just going to jump straight into the start coding now. And as I said, this does offer a number of different programming languages, but we're just going to be using HTML. We use a little bit of CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. And then we won't be dealing with JavaScript right now, but we will do in future projects. So we'll click on HTML, CSS, and JS, and that will load the IDE. Now it names it a random name. We're going to actually call it HTML. You're going to create one specifically later on as the project, but for now we're just going to call it HTML. So I'm just going to run through what we're looking at here. I'm just going to open this up a little bit. We can grab these lines in the middle and resize things. So on the left hand side here we have the files that are in our project. Now, our website has more than just one single page, so this gives us the opportunity to add additional HTML pages. There's some other files here, the script.js, which is a JavaScript file. We're not actually going to use that, so we're going to click on these little dots and we're going to click delete. And we're just left with the index.html and the style.css, the style.cascading style sheets. We'll use that a little bit towards the end. So we've got some options here. If you don't have this kind of layout, sometimes you have 3 in a row. You can click on the settings and you can change the layout to stacked if it's side by side. And yeah, you can close the left-hand side here if you want to see more space. So you can see that the video you're watching now is sized for half a Chromebook screen, so you can shift this over to the right-hand or left-hand side, and then you can have your browser on the other side, and you will code alongside with me. So you should have page open so you're coding as I'm coding, so you get used to it. So on the top right hand corner here we have this HTML code, this script. We're going to go through this in a minute, but when we run, anything that's in here will appear here. So we're going to just go through this document here. The very first thing we have at the top here is exclamation mark doc type, and then it's HTML. Now this just tells the browser that this is going to be standards HTML. So that's what we're telling the browser to expect, standard HTML. It's not absolutely essential, but it does put the browser in a certain mode to expect HTML. There's other file types that we can use that we can declare as a doc type as well, but in this case we're only dealing with HTML. So then we get to our first element, which is the HTML, and this contains everything within our document, all of the code we can't see and all of the code we can see. And so we have the opening tag HTML, and with an opening tag we have this closing tag down the bottom here. Okay, so as we open, we close. Then we have the head tag. This contains, at the very least, a title for our page. So we have the title tag, and in this case, we're going to change this to HTML test, what we call that. So that would be the title of our tab. So you can see here, replt-html. That would, if we open that in a different browser, we would see that that would take over the title of this page. Jumping back to here, we have some meta tags. Now, meta tags are individual, invisible tags to the viewer of the web page, but it does tell the browser some certain information, and also we use it for search engines when we want to tell search engines certain information. So it just lets the browser know and the search engines know some secret stuff um, just for them that's not meant for the end user. One thing we have here is the meta charset. Now the charset here we're specifying UTF-8. Now by this time, hopefully you've come across ASCII. You've been taught ASCII before. Now from ASCII you know that it's characters that are used, and we can identify the characters using um, bytes. Now, that's got a very limited range. The UTF-8 expands that range to well over 1 million different characters that we can use. And this just specifies that's the char set or the character set that we're going to be using in this document. And UTF-8 uses between 1 and 4 bytes to define all of those characters. Then we move down to this link href. So this link href, this is the first time we've come across this tag that does not have a closing tag. Instead, it opens with a link, and then just before the end, we have this slash to indicate we've come to the end of that. That's one of the first ones that we've come across. There'll be a couple of others that won't have a closing tag, but pretty much everything else does. What this does is it just identifies at this point in the document, just after it's set the title to HTML test, it says now bring in the code from style.css, load that in, and just to let you know, it's the style sheet. So that just tells the browser that there's a file called style.css. It's a style sheet, and this is the code type that to expect within that file, that document. Load it in now, and that's what that's doing. And then we come to the end of the head tag, and then we move on to the body tag. Now the body tag is where all of your code goes, all of your scripting goes, sorry, not scripting, all of your HTML goes that will be seen by the viewer of your website, of your web page. So that's really important that everything goes between the opening and closing body tag. So first thing, we're going to get rid of this script tag because we've deleted the JavaScript and we're not going to use that. But what we are going to do is we're going to create our first content, our first website content, and we're going to create a paragraph. So to create a paragraph, we open with a p tag, and we'll say hello world. And then as we've opened the p tag, we have to close the p tag. Okay. So at this point, we want to see this. So we just click the run button, and what that does is it loads it onto the site, saves it, and then outputs it in this window here to indicate a kind of a browser window. And there we have hello world. So that's the very first part of this tutorial. We'll get into further tags later on. One final thing, just before I forget, in this file section here, we've got the ability to add files. So we're going to be adding more HTML files for sure. But what also we'll be doing is we'll be uploading images, because we want to use images on our website as well. So we'll be uploading some images into this system as well.